Every great entrepreneur starts with a single question. Why is it still done this way? Our guest today, Moran Snir, spent her life around the world of genetics, but it was her unique ability to combine that deep-rooted knowledge with elite technical precision that changed the industry forever. From her early days as a lieutenant in the Israeli Air Force Elite Computer Corps to earning her MBA at Wharton, Moran has always been at the intersection of complex data and human impact. She's a serial founder who doesn't just build companies, she builds solutions that scale. Her first venture, MorNetware, became the backbone of carrier screening in Israel. She followed that by co-founding Clear Genetics, a Y Combinator backed pioneer that used AI to democratize genetic counseling, leading to a high-profile acquisition by Invitae and is still used today. Now, as the CEO and co-founder of Nest Genomics, she's back in the YC lab once again, rewriting the playbook for how health systems manage genomic data. She's a master of the successful exit and a visionary in personalized medicine. We're honored to have her today. Moran, it's such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It's so fun to be here. I'm really glad to participate in this podcast.
Well,
And
thank you so much. Well, I like to start out with the positive, and I would love to hear from you. What is your greatest success to date so far?
yeah, I think that when I look back, I kind of like get to connect all the points around my journey from being a daughter of a medical geneticist to kind of like seeing the value of genetic information and genetic services to patients. And then the fact that I get to work in it every day and kind of like see how one company evolved to another company and that how that impacted the industry and how things are evolving is such a pleasure. And I'm really thankful for that.
It seems your deep-rooted knowledge is innate behavior since a young child. So I love hearing stories like that, that actually being around that environment all the time inspired you to be where you are today. Could you just touch a little bit upon about what was that aha moment for you and around what age that you knew this is what you wanted to do?
Um, That's so interesting. Lizzie, I'm not sure. I was thinking about this, kind of like preparing for this podcast, and I'm not sure that there's like this,
Yeah.
point in time that like, I'm gonna be doing that or I'm gonna be a founder. It's more kind of like when you got this, had this knowledge around how to build software and knew about this problem in the genetic space, and I felt I can go and solve that because I had an opinion or kind of like had a thought about a solution, and that had a lot of impact. And like the genetic space evolves so quickly, and
Mm.
was fortunate to be at this point where cost of testing has dropped and the utility of genetic information increased. And then the question of, well, how do you help close that gap of operations and delivery of care? And I was thinking about it that even like when we started, digital health was a relatively new thing. So the first company started in 2004, just a couple of years after kind of like the dot-com bubble. So really, it's a matter of time and kind of seeing the opportunities and I guess trying.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have the courage, as well as the knowledge, from years of passive or epigenetic training, we should say, as well as the passion to do it. So, where do you feel the grit came from to really be a multi-time founder?
I think that like MorNetware was something that I've built as I was starting my career. So I had 6 years of software engineering training in the military and then went to the university. And when I went to university, I kind of like built this solution that got to scale very quickly because Israel has a public health system.
Hmm.
And then after business school, thought, oh, like let's start, we have an opinion about kind of like how we could help with delivery of care and started Clear Genetics. Um, and really that kind of like taught me around, well, like now you created these relationships with this industry, you understand it more, you have this team that's willing to go, forward with you, and the problem isn't solved. So let's go back and kind of like see what we've learned and see how now like the industry evolved and we could provide something that's even, um, I guess, kind of more inspirational.
Do you feel that in life it's all about time and access? Like, you hear all the time it's not necessarily, I don't believe in luck per se, because I think a lot of it is grit and hard work, but I feel like it's all about the right time, where you are, what you're involved in, because it sounds like your journey was very organic on each step along each company that you founded.
Yeah, I believe in that so much. Let's see, I think it's, there's that quote around kind of like the harder I work, the luckier I am.
Yeah.
And I think that that's true because, like you just like open a lot of doors and you're in a lot of conversations. And if um, you meet the right people, and
Hmm.
it's never a journey, I think, that you go on your own. You have a lot of people that, take, it really does take a village of
Yeah.
people that kind of believe in your idea and are willing to go the distance with you and trust you, especially in the beginning.
Yeah. Community is everything.
Yeah, yeah. And this is why I'm so happy about doing this podcast and excited about I listen to the episodes about what you do because I think that that really kind of like proliferates our relationships and knowledge and the ability to kind of like get inspired from one another. And that maybe creates that courage, or like what's thought about it, like thought as courage, but it really is at the end, collective power.
Oh, I love that collective power. Well, thank you for supporting us. I want this authentic community, right? Like, and as you know, as a woman leader, how hard it is, to get access, to get people to listen, to get people to know that you are the expert in the room. So that's really was the impetus of this, is just to really bring real women, kind women, strong women, intelligent women together to talk about their journey. And so I think you're one of the most perfect DG guests that we have on the show, because your journey is really interesting in a sense of, you kind of touched upon it. Going back to your early education, you actually went right into the military first and
Yeah.
then went to university. Could you kind of talk about that? How did that sort of carve out your experiences and layered you into you as an entrepreneur today? Because most people do it the other way, the flip side of it, right?
Yeah, in Israel, there's mandatory military service, and that happens when you're 18. So it kind of is like is your path that when you're 18, you go and join the military. My military service was unique because it's typically only for 2 years for women, but I served for 6 years. Part of that was
Wow.
because yeah, it's a long time. Even in retrospect, I think like that was like probably a very long time that shaped a lot of things. Um, those I was kind of selected to go to the software engineering training, and as part of that software engineering training, you're required to stay for a longer time, and then also for officer school, I stayed for a longer time, and I think that more than anything, it is kind of joining. It's like working for a corporate company at some perspective. Like you have your training, and then you join this large organization that's trying to execute on different tasks and a vision that it has. And specifically, kind of like where I was building software for the Israeli Air Force, and that could be kind of like from software that goes to like on planes and to kind of like facilitate more kind of like real-time solutions to logistical, operational software platforms that were built there. So like I think that having the responsibility and the kind of like role that I had in that large organization in an early stage of life really taught me a lot around responsibility and overcoming challenges and you know knowing that if you execute, you will kind of like have good results. So that was a lot of kind of growing up.
I couldn't agree more. I had a similar experience, not in the not going into the military. I mean, one, I love that you went into the software program, this Defense Force program, at a time where software was starting to become more, front of mind in healthcare. So here you're working a different subspecialty, right? But you're developing the same skill sets and foundation.
Yeah.
Somebody who builds AI platforms and utilizes SaaS systems, where do you see the future for individuals like yourself, who have the engineering background?
Yeah, I think about that a lot, especially because now I have kind of growing children that I'm trying to guide around kind of like what is going to be the main roles. And I think that um, maybe there's this thing around kind of like freedom of thought. So
Mm.
if we kind of as humans have the freedom to imagine new solutions, new ideas, understanding how things work so you can kind of like contribute to that um, creation of new things is a skill that won't go away so quickly because like you'll be able to guide agents or tools or build things with more support, but could have the imagination that it needs to create.
What a great way of looking at it, because I always, as a scientist, I feel I have less time to for free thought and free thinking and innovating. And so I am trying to utilize more AI tools these days to be like my admin. And
Yes.
I think of back in the day of like Einstein of all and all the great, scientists where they would just literally sit around and they got paid to think. I
Yeah.
can't imagine being
That's
paid just to think,
right.
you know?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Every time I'm nervous about kind of like how easy it is for the AI to do what I would take hours to do, I kind of think back around like, hopefully it will all be done for a better, like things would help serve us better. So our lives would maybe be easier, like many other kind of like industry revolutions that happened in the past.
I was thinking the exact same thing when you were talking, right? Like when we went from human assembly lines to, the manufacturing assembly lines during the war and stuff, and we were able to come around on it on the other end. So I love this optimistic view.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your new company. Well, it's not that new. It's been around for about 4 years now. Can you kind of give what the impetus was for starting Nest Genomics and what's really the big idea behind this company?
Yeah. The science of and the promise about kind of like using genetic information to guide care has now like been around for I think over 20 years and people I think believe in that vision. So kind of like it's inevitable that we'd use that important piece of information in our bodies to guide our care. But then there's this gap around, well, where what science has achieved and knows versus kind of like how it is delivered and implemented in care today. And the goal of Nest is really to help kind of like operationalize, well, how do you use that science and how do you use that information and genetic tools to guide care? And I think the first step is like, how does everybody have access to it? So every time you get care, genetics is part of the care that you're getting. And Nest really helps identify, who needs genetic tests, what genetic tests do they need, and then what to do with their results. And then at that point, how does it not become just like a one-time experience, but an ongoing interaction with your genetic information to guide ongoing care? So kind of like thinking of Nest as where genetic information lives and where genetic care lives, and having that as a secure place that you could kind of like continue to um, engage with.
Well, I really appreciate you putting the two pieces together. Myself being a licensed clinical geneticist, we're really good at building it, right? Like building the solutions, how to develop the tests, identify, the targets associated with the condition, but then it just kind of stops there. And we rely on a lot of GCs, right, to convey the information. Our medical schools still have not caught up on having genetics as a primary education.
Yeah.
There's a big gap there, right? Unless you go into like a fellowship or residency program that focuses on genetics. So empowering clinicians and other people, in the field as well as outside of the field, I think is a really valuable tool. Hopefully, one thing that I just thought of in the concept of your company, do you feel that this will help payers change their mind? That genetic testing is no longer investigational, that it's an absolute unmet need, that everyone should have access to it?
Yeah, yeah. I was just like, like there's this reality of healthcare, right? Like there's like this knowledge of things, and then it meets the reality of healthcare and how healthcare is delivered and how people have access to. And I think that you look at kind of like how things are evolving now. There's all of these newborns, whole genome sequencing programs across the country, across the world, and think, well, where is that? So once we sequence those babies, like where does that information go? How would these children be able to access that information over time? And how would providers know that that genetic information exists so they could go and requery that or use that or kind of like use that in decision making? And I think that that kind of like is the part of this holistic story around genetics and pairs, because like if you could use that information and over time, if it was something that really helped guide care and was useful, would that shift the conversation? And I really believe that it would. When I reflect around what's changed, so like I've been doing this for a long time. Am I doing the same thing or have things evolved? And
Hmm.
I definitely think that things evolved. When we started Clear Genetics 10 years ago, we really had to like most of our conversations were around making people feel comfortable with the data that
Hmm.
people don't need to see a genetic counselor for an hour in order to get a genetic test. Like you can automate parts of that pre-test education and then kind of like open up the funnel so more patients could get access to genetics, and then the genetic counselors could see them at the back end. So now like with Nest, I feel like that's a given. Like everybody's like, oh, of course, like they'll just like get a genetic test and then we'll see them after that. So I do think that it is evolving slowly, but hopefully we'll get there.
As healthcare does, right? It feels
Yeah.
like you're walking through cement sometimes.
Yes.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the operational aspects of your business, especially in this economy. And since you've been in the genetics field for a long time, we've seen a lot of people come and go. So what's it been like for you to raise money, build your go-to-market plan, wrap up to commercialization in this rapidly changing market?
I think that being like a serial founder in this space and having the relationships in this space did help with that aspect. So both in terms of kind of getting our first customers on the off the ground, we were able to work with a lot of people that we worked before at Clear Genetics and kind of like trusted our team and kind of like the ideas behind it to work with us. And that's the same for a lot of the investors that were investors in Clear Genetics and are investors in Nest. Definitely, there's a huge shift. I think that there was a point around COVID or after COVID that genetics healthcare became a super popular
Mm.
kind of like field and area of investment in uh, non-traditional genetics or kind of like life sciences investors, and you'd see like these more traditional tech investors coming in without maybe like having the full appreciation of how much time it takes in healthcare to build large things and to build kind of like these sticky solutions. So I do see a shift in the space where kind of like those more tech driven investors are not in the space anymore, and we're back to working with a lot of people who have a really good understanding of the space, and I think that's a good thing.
Well, that's great. And yes, that serial entrepreneurship, right? You've had one great success story, with the Invitae acquisition. So I would think that that definitely gets you a catapult, but at the same time, it's a little bit scary because people are expecting, right, the same results. So you're always probably on point with yourself, making sure you're still producing in the same fashion.
Yeah, there's a lot of work and validation, and also kind of like, well, like managing expectation. Especially, I always think about like yourself, right? Like,
Yeah.
what's your expectation to think like, how are you going to, you know, does lightning strike twice? And for me, just like it's not about kind of like the success of it is people knowing about it, using it, the
Mhm.
impact that we have on patients at the end of the day, um, people that want to work with us again and again. That's
Yeah.
inspiring because, like, at the end, you wake up in the morning and you go to work and you want to do something where people have passion and motivation to do it, and you feel that you have impact.
Impact is everything. I mean, the human element, we lose sight of that, in our industry time and time again. So that to me is more powerful than
Yeah.
what you've built, right? And it seems to be a culture that you bring with you everywhere you go.
Yeah. Thank you.
So as you know, the premise of this podcast is we like to dig in a little bit further on your experiences and ask you if you could share with us what is your one good, one bad, and one ugly in your career to date.
One good touches on kind of what we just talked about, and that is my team that agrees to come along on the journey again and again and again, inspiring people that are thoughtful and could really kind of like build something that makes a difference. And I'm grateful that I get to work with them every day. The bad is that you have to say goodbye to things like Gia. That was like my fourth child.
Yeah.
Um, and then, then it was owned by Invitae, and now it's owned by LabCorp. And that was hard to say goodbye. And I kept listening to kind of like, this mantra around like, it needs to overlive you.
Hmm.
So if it overlives you, it's good. And the ugly, I guess, is kind of this ongoing, consistent struggle of my three boys that somehow like grew so quickly, and work that always needs you and your attention, and like being able to manage that with life, and it can be ugly.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I always feel like I'm half in one, like, career mom or career woman, executive, and then the other half
Yeah.
mom mode. And it's a constant balance.
Yeah, I know. I know. I miss
But
a lot
they
of things.
appreciate you for it, I'm sure, right? Because I have this quote in my office, what does success look like, for my children? And so I don't lose sight of like who I am as a person, right?
Yeah,
And
that's
emulate what they,
beautiful.
right? Like emulate what you want them to be, because I'm sure you've seen it time and time again, is that it's very toxic out there, and can be very sort of, scratching at the
Yeah.
walls and climbing up, trying to get your way through. And I've seen people lose sight of who they are. And so I don't want to raise the next generation to
Yeah.
to do the same. So
Yeah, I love that. Gonna share
thank
that
you.
with them.
Thank you. Well, could you tell us, as a woman leader and being in the sciences your entire life, do you have any hopes for women in STEM, and how do you think we're going to get there?
I hope it won't be rare for women to be in leadership positions in STEM. And, like talking about the boys, so I have three boys.
Amazing.
Um, and I think that like maybe my biggest kind of like active, ongoing contribution is the fact that they see me. For them, it's for granted that I'm a woman and have a leadership position, and my hope for them um, is that would be natural for them to kind of like support their partners in that way and encourage them to do the same and be the same and even like expect that that's kind of just like the normal.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, even if when they go into the workforce or school or whatever they're doing, it's not this sex bias, right, situation,
yeah.
because they're being raised by a strong mom.
Yeah.
I think that's more powerful, us strong women raising boys. I mean, it's just important raising girls,
Yeah.
but it's changing the perspective, I guess
Yeah.
is what I want to say.
I agree. Like, like for a long time, I thought, oh, well, like now I don't have girls. I can't kind of like teach them what I think, but it actually is like the fact that they're boys, that we could show them that's a given.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I I can't imagine how rambunctious your house could be at times. Having three boys last, I have one and I'm like, whoa, I can't imagine having three of him.
Yeah. No, there are a lot of balls that they keep throwing
Yeah.
a lot of balls
Oh,
being thrown around.
constant. Literally my son, like from the time he wakes up to the time he goes to bed, it's just nonstop moving. I love it.
Hmm.
I wish I
Yeah.
had that energy.
I know.
Well, unfortunately, we've come to an end. This has been a really lovely conversation with you, learning more about you personal and professionally. But I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
What is your superpower?
Maybe community.
Hmm.
Like just like the fact that I get energy from the people around me that strengthens me. My family,
Hmm.
my parents, they give me just like strength.
Beautiful. Well, the community that supports you, but you also have created your own community, because of that. So I love that. Well, I'm excited to be a part of your community and
Yeah, I'm so
the
glad that
rest.
we met.
Yeah, me too. And the rest of the DG listeners are very lucky to have you in the DG ecosystem. So thank you again for your time, Moran, and
Thank
good
you.
luck with everything.
Thank you. So nice to meet you, and it was a pleasure.